Morning, Rob.
Morning, Andy.
What are we looking at here today?
Another new part. This is called the Summit Lift Skid.
That's pretty neat. What's it do? What's it for?
So it does a lot of things, which is we're gonna have to go into the weeds a little bit on how this thing works. But really, what it is this is a very cost-effective way to be able to add some spring rate and a little bit of lift to the front of your Sprinter all-wheel drive van.
Cool. Where's it go on the van? What's it do?
So it goes underneath the van. So we kind of got to talk about how does the Sprinter's front suspension sort of work. So the Sprinter van, the front end is held up using a mono leaf spring. So it has this one fiberglass leaf spring that spans the two lower control arms.
Okay.
So it's kind of this upside down, U shape.
Right.
That's the end of the leaf spring has a little tip and it sits inside of the lower control arm.
Gotcha.
So this is going to replace a factory part, and then us not being able to ever kind of leave anything alone and trying to constantly kind of improve these things and chase that perfect driving feel and driving dynamic. We tweak things.
Okay.
So goes underneath the van and replaces the OEM spring plates.
Okay.
So the way that leaf spring underneath the vehicle is isolated from the van. So the ends of the springs that are in the control arm, the leaf spring tips sit on these rubber pads. Let's call them little leaf spring pads. And then in the middle of the van, so it's got this upside down U shape. We've talked a lot about NVH in the past about these things they transfer a lot of noise and vibration and harshness into the cabin. So everything mechanical has to kind of get isolated via rubber.
Right. So the spring's just basically encasing a bunch of rubber everywhere.
Yep. Okay. So it's rubber everywhere. It's rubber at the end. The top of the spring has these two little rubber pads. They're isolators. And then the bottom of the spring push up on to help give it that negative arch.
Okay.
Those are rubber too. So the factory spring plates, which this replaces, houses the bottom rubber isolator or spring pad. Maybe we'll call it a spring pad. What this does is now we have moved where that spring pad engages on the spring.
Okay.
And allows us to adjust how much pressure it's putting on the leaf spring.
Gotcha. So that's basically just changing the shape of the leaf spring and bending it in a little different place.
Yep.
And then as it pushes the control arms down, the van goes up.
Correct.
And so that sounds like it's adjusting the preload, essentially.
Exactly right. It's the same concept that we really we came up with and implemented on our OptiRate rear leaf springs. Okay. That same concept, that was kind of the idea. I was like, can we put this on the front of the van and make this work?
Gotcha.
So it's kind of this proven theory. We already know it works. Well, let's see if we can actually make it work on the front of the van.
And is there some adjustability built into this as well?
There is. Okay. Yeah. So they're not here, but basically the little pad sits on, you can see it's 3 holes. And so there's spacer plates that you can change the spacer plates on it.
Yeah.
So more spacer plates, more preload, less spacer plates, less preload.
And so this seems like it would be useful for something that's like a heavier van with a lot more front axle weight, or maybe a van that's been driven really hard and sagged. I know on our red van that we drove really hard and that thing lost ride height over time as the spring just fatigued.
Yeah. The vans definitely kind of start to take a set after, 60. My first van, when I got rid of it, had 60,000 miles or so on it. The front end sagged on it. It started to take a set.
Right. Well, and I would assume that the rubber compresses a little bit over time and takes a set.
That was a thing that we kind of learned way back in T1N era, before 4x4s were even a real thing, was because those vans would start to sag really bad and they would bottom out super bad.
Gotcha.
And the fix for those vans was you replace the OEM rubber isolators, because at that point, those vans were already 12, 15 years old.
Right, and the rubber shot.
It compressed, and then the van loses ride height, and in turn, it loses a little bit of that spring rate, that arch that's in the OEM spring.
So who's this really intended for?
It's really intended for this guy.
Okay.
It's for big, heavy cabin chassis that have more forward weight on the front end. I mean, these things in bone stock form they're borderline dangerous to drive.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the amount of, they're so soft and wallowy with no shock or spring
Right.
upgrade.
Yeah, we got some great video clips of, testing it, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like it sways all over the place. It's really loose handling.
Yeah.
So like doing an opti rate is great in the back. I mean, there's a lot of weight in the back, but
Yeah.
like you're still unbalanced front to back on your spring rate, right?
Right. So I mean, historically we could solve that with like a sumo spring,
Mm-hmm.
but that only could up the rate a little bit.
Right.
But it didn't give us any ride height improvement, which we're really starting to notice as these vans get heavier
Mm-hmm.
and as they're aging too. The front ends will start to sag.
Right.
So we wanted to fix that and be able to provide like really a fairly cost-effective solution to get just, you want to get the van 1 inch in, increase in lift quickly. This is that solution.
So how hard is this to install?
It is unbelievably easy to install.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, for
ballpark hourly if the van's in the air.
It's already in the air.
Yeah.
You're under an hour.
Okay.
You're under an hour install.
So then how is this, it sounds like it's kind of a lift kit, but it's something else as well. And how does this differ with like our Striker front lift kit? Like, can you explain some of the differences there?
Yeah. So our Striker kit, our Striker lift kit's a true lift kit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say true lift kit, that means that you're getting bump stop spacing. So
Right.
that's really critical with a lift kit. You talk about
Right.
lift kit, and bump stop spacing is effectively, when your suspension is at full compression,
Right.
your tire is going to get all the way up to the body, right? Now with the lift kit, what's part of the point of getting a lift kit is ground clearance, but another part of it is put bigger tire on.
For more ground clearance.
For more ground clearance, right? That's really the only way you're really getting true ground clearance out of these vehicles, because it's a solid rear axle.
Right.
So the only way you're getting real ground clearance, and the lowest point on these vehicles is the center of the differential. That's the lowest point on these things. So it's a lot of misconception about ground clearance, and you put this on and you get ground clearance. And the lowest point of the vehicle is the center of the rear diff.
Right.
So you need tire. In order to get biggest tire on, you need some increased bump stop spacing.
Okay.
So that's our Striker kit. The Striker kit keeps all the factory suspension geometry. Everything is kind of flat and unchanged. We leave it like that. The downside to it is installation. It's a significant amount of install time.
Big project.
It's a big project. You got to lower the subframe. You got to put a lot of components on. This is not that. This installs super fast. Like I said, I mean, for us, we throw this on in 30 minutes.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So even if you're talking like changing ride height, let's say if you were experimenting a little bit as an
100%.
end user, it's like, I've owned coilover vehicles. You have like, there's some process that goes in with changing ride height when you have adjustable ride height.
Yeah.
And this is giving the end owner of the van that ability to kind of fine tune it a little bit, tighten up the handling, adjust and correct for some of the sag that we see over the front of the van.
Yep.
Cool.
100%. Yep.
So then how does this compare with like the coilover options that are out there on the market from the competition?
The main thing is we're still doing what OEM Mercedes designed into the van, right? So we're not putting spring load force into the floor of the van, which is actually a very thin part of material, and it's in the cabin with you. So you put spring load in, that now eliminates that rubber ice, the big juicy donut bushing that is the upper strut mount on a Sprinter van. That rubber isolator goes away, and now you're inducing more NVH into the cabin.
Yeah, and the negatives obviously of putting spring force into a axially loaded rubber bushing. It's like that's not how a bushing should be loaded, really.
No, it's not ideal.
Right.
So we've never been a huge fan of that. So we wanted to try to come up with a solution that, we got the same end result, but kept it within the MB model, which is like, okay, this, and there are all sorts of we've found during development of this, there's, I don't know how many different front springs there are. There's endless amounts of different front spring rates and springs. As you can imagine, when you go to buy a van, the GVW options are they're
wheelbase, cab height, what the option codes. I mean,
and these are things you don't really know until you like blow apart vans, take everything apart, which we've done on multiple vans to get this part into production, to see like, oh, this is a different part number. It's a different part number. there's a different color, there's a different part number, different color, all from different year ranges and chassis configurations.
Yeah, and sometimes the only way to know is like they just paint a different color on the spring. I know a lot of European cars are that way, where it's like, oh, you want the yellow and white coils if you want the sportiest ride. Like, what's the part number? I don't know. It's the yellow and white. You know.
Right. Yeah. So that's the main reason why we didn't do the coilover. And another negative to kind of coilovers, you have to run wheel spacers. You have to, you know, you have the tire clearance problems. You do lose the like boot functionality of protecting your strut.
Right.
All of those things combined to like, well, I don't really want to do that. But the main reason is for the NVH hit.
Gotcha.
We just don't want to hit
and then
NVH.
you know we get to make a nice skid plate out of it as well.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, you know, you get that other added benefit of like, well, this is also a skid plate, but it's also giving you sag correction and, you know, tightening up your sway and, you know, getting you better handling control. So what's the like if you were starting from scratch, what's the ideal parts combination you put with this?
You know, for this vehicle, it's really like our OptiRate rear spring.
Okay.
You know, if you were just running, like say that Revel behind us, like the Revel, like that van has our traditional 4.3 kit, which is adjustable shocks front and rear, and it's got the 3-leaf mini pack in the rear. Yeah. And the point of that kit, and that's one of our, you know, most popular kits, our bread and butter kit, right, is to like correct that rear end sag from the build out, get the spring rate up a little bit and get your ride height up a little bit. Now, if you were to put this on that van, now that Revel is a standard Revel. It's light. It's not built out with a bunch of accessories on it. It's not loaded down for trips. That van then the front would be lifted and it would kind of have that sag again. Really. So it's not ideal. So really, for that vehicle, if we wanted to put that on, then you really want to get that OptiRate pack on the rear to get it up, because that van's going to get you more to like that 2-inch in the rear, and then this will get you that 1-inch.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is like if you've got a heavy 170, if you've got like a cabin chassis, you know, some kind of Class C or hybrid C type van that's got a lot of front axle weight, this is really who that's intended for. So if I've got like a 7,000 pound crew van that is really bare bones, like probably not something I should be looking at.
No, it's going to detrimental to the ride quality. Now, I will say, if you're that customer that likes a very firm feeling van, right? Like you like having a van that is very responsive. It's extremely firm in the front end and in the rear. Then this is for you. Yeah. Okay. I don't recommend it necessarily. We very much developed it for these heavier vans that just have like I said, this thing's borderline dangerous to drive when they're bone stock.
Totally. Yeah. Like in an evasive maneuver. Right?
Oh my God. Like it's so sketchy.
It's like super, super soft and just all over the place. Yeah.
So that's really who it's tailored for. Okay. And then again, if your van is old, you got 60, 70, 80,000 miles on your van and it's feeling softer in the front end where you are like blowing through the travel and you already have good shocks on the vehicle. Yeah, you should look into this.
Gotcha. So think of this more as like sag correction, tightening the handling. The striker kit is still the kit that gets you the maximum ground clearance, the bigger tire size. The striker kit doesn't really change the front spring rate at all. No, right? It doesn't. So it's like, would you combine both of these in any given situation?
You could, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, if you wanted to. If you wanted to go for that kind of max lift, max spring rate setup. Yeah.
Or if you've got a heavy van that you also want to lift and you're just looking to throw everything at it, obviously this 100%. Is it.
Yeah. And this all integrates into our skid plate systems. Cool. It all jives. It comes with a front plate that ties in to our steel bash plate on our engine skid plate. Excellent. So if you already bought all that stuff, this is all going to integrate into it. You're going to reuse some of those components. Cool.
Yeah. So the big takeaway here then is just that we're loading the springs through the factory subframe as they were always intended to be. Yep. We're correcting sag. We're tightening the handling. It's very fast to install. It gives you a skid plate functionality, and this is all at a very competitive price point as well. So that's great. This is like a pretty innovative thing. I've never seen anybody else really try to solve this kind of problem. I know a few people have maybe tried to come up with a long travel leaf spring or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen like custom springs before that are mostly in Europe. That's a bear because it's a real nightmare to install the front spring. Right. You got to blow the entire front suspension apart.
Like control arms off the van and everything.
CVs, everything. It's not, we've gotten pretty fast at it because we've had to do it so many times to develop this. But for the average installer, no, you don't want to do that. Right. This thing,
Plus there's they're making one leaf spring. Well, what, we already talked about, there's a bunch of different leaf spring rates.
This can work on any van, and you're going to get the same result on every vehicle.
Right.
You're going to get, and it's all laid out in the instructions. Like if your van's kind of in this weight range,
cool,
we recommend this many spacers, and you can expect this much lift.
Totally. Yeah. And again, it's, essentially end user adjustable. If you got to be fairly strong. It's
a pretty
sizable
part.
piece of steel.
It's something we learned because we've kind of first had the idea here. We're like, oh, this should be easy. We can just, change how we push on these.
Right.
The amount of spring force that it sees is actually, it took us a while to get enough strength into the part. And that's why you have this whole lift skid assembly.
Which is kind of funny because the part you take off is very insubstantial.
Correct. So, it really is. But because of we end up inboarding where it's pushing just ever so slightly, the force just goes, it increases that much more.
Right.
And we're asking, this spring to have and it's so slight. It's crazy. We didn't expect it to be like that.
Yeah.
And so it ended up having to be this insane armored part.
So if you're doing it at home, make sure you don't skip chest day.
I mean, use a floor jack.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Cool. That's what I would do. But yeah, it's a cool part. We're excited about it. The concept to from concept to production was a lot of work.
For sure.
And a lot of just constant, fitment, measure, all the different vans to really dial in the process. But it's super cool. It's one of my favorite looking parts that we make.
Yeah, it's very cool. There's a lot of beauty into it. And,
yeah.
I mean, I've driven vans with it. Obviously, it does really, really tighten up the handling. Yeah. It's very noticeable. For me, I like sports cars. Yeah. I would be running that even on a lightweight van, just in a lower setting. But gets you a nice firm feeling where the van is really responsive and corners and transitionals, like a swerve around an obstacle in the road or something. So I'm really excited to be launching this. I dig it. I think it's a cool part. It's again innovation, right? Never stop.
Yeah.
And, this again is something I don't even know if anybody else even thought about. What if
right?
And here we are. So
Right. Well, like I said, it was a lot of work to go from what if to okay, this actually works.
Right.
And this is a repeatable thing that is going to work for everybody.
Right.
If it fits into their
cool
wants, which is cool. I said.
Well, I mean, the Echo and some, open trails, everything like that, that's really kind of that's the new trend.
That's where everything's going. They're going to big cabin chassis like this. And it's understandable, but I mean, it seems like every couple months there's getting a new RV manufacturer or a new small RV manufacturer is getting into the game, and they're building on this habitat style cabin chassis.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it. I dig it. I've started to see some really cool innovations there as far as a short wheelbase or a pop roof. And, to me, that's kind of the, anybody that's followed this for a while has obviously heard of Heimers. And, they've been doing this forever. And that's kind of the Europeans already settled on that format a decade ago. And we're just a little late to catch on. But I really see that being kind of the end, I guess the end of the journey, right? What's the ideal adventure camper van?
Yeah, it's getting to more of this stuff, or even potentially smaller iterations of it. But at the end of the day, they still end up with kind of that's more front heavy weight bias.
Right, totally.
So
sweet, man.
Cool.
Let's launch it.
Let's do it.